Hey team, before we dive into today's episode, I've got a quick favour to ask. The Women's Football Hub merch store is now live, and every purchase helps support our work as a non-profit championing women and girls football from the ground up. There's something for everybody, adults and kids. There's loads of colours and sizes, and your support helps us grow the game one piece of apparel at a time. Just head over to www.womensfootballhub.com to check it out. Thanks for backing the hub, and now let's get into the episode.
Hello and welcome to the Women's Football Hub podcast. I am your host for this episode. I am Carolyn Kent, and joining me today is a UEFA A licensed coach, and he also specialises in rehabilitation and fitness. Welcome to Women's Football Hub, Andy Driscoll.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, and it's lovely to have you on because you and I align on quite a few things, don't we? You and I, where there's a big thing kicked off on LinkedIn a little while ago, and there was a whole thing about we need more female coaches, which I think both of us are on board with, but actually both of us came to a conclusion that actually we need better coaches, don't we?
Yeah.
That's effectively what we need in women's football, is the best coaches we can have. So I'm really interested in your journey. Let's chat first of all a little bit about your background and your current role in football.
Okay, so my background, a long time ago, because I'm a little bit old, played football, played professionally, played a few games, got injured, struggled for a bit to get back fit, then played men's senior football or non-league football, so carried on playing, still trying to get back into the professional game. Whilst I did that, I did literally every job that you can do without qualification and decided I needed to do something. Got into personal training, did all my personal training qualifications, did that for quite a long time, worked in quite a few places, central London, personal training, studios, big corporate gyms. Then started doing one-to-ones in sort of houses and in parks. And then thinking with football. So it was more about football. I wanted to do the football. So started doing a bit of fitness in football, working with some players that used to be my teammates that ended up being managers or coaches. So I would go in and go through warm-ups and stretching and things like that. Then it went from like fitness to then a little bit, he's injured. Okay, what's the physio said? Physio said this. Okay, I'll rehab. Then did soft tissue work. Then did teaching. So I'm not a teacher, but I'm a tutor. So did my tutoring qualifications. So then I started teaching fitness level 2 and level 3 personal training. So I've done that for the last few years. And then it was like, why don't I just do my coaching badges? Because I'm in football, because you get a lot of, you haven't got your badge, or you're not played. So it was like, okay, let me do my badges. So I was doing my badges whilst I was working with players, and ended up, got to my sort of A license, and yeah, here I am now. Like, I don't know what I am, but I am sort of, I've got knowledge and qualifications and experience and everything, but I still don't know what I want to be. If when I grow up, I want to be a football coach, I wouldn't say I want to be a football coach. I would want to say I'd be assistant coach with a view to, so I lead coaching sessions over the years, but am I that good at lead coaching? Maybe not. I'm probably better at being an assistant coach, where they ask me about football rehab, football fitness. So because I've got a few specialities, I could be like an assistant and be in charge of keeping everybody fit. That's probably my thing.
What first sparked your interest in coaching and led you to pursue formal qualifications like the UEFA A licence?
It was probably because if I was going to take some part of the football session, you might get, but you haven't got a badge. Even if I'm not the head coach, if I'm an assistant coach, or if I'm doing whatever part of the football training, then, it's, oh, you've played. Yeah. Oh, you got badges. Yeah. But I might just be doing the fitness component of football or a rehab. So hopefully then, if you want buy-in, you want to be able to create an environment where they trust you, and they hopefully trust you, and they think, okay, he's doing it for me. So I need to know about everything. And I don't know everything. I'm not an expert and got a master's degree in everything, but at least knowing a bit about everything in football, I think you've got a better chance.
Now, for listeners who might not know, what does a UEFA A licence involve in terms of structure, assessment and time commitment?
So I did my UEFA B in 2016, I think. And I think the format then was like a 9v9 at the end. And you didn't have to do the warm up, but it's a phase of play thing. And then you had to go into a 9v9. That was it. And it was probably we get criticised, fast tracked. It was UEFA. My level 2 I did at my local association, which it wasn't great, but my UEFA B I did with the PFA, and it was so much harder. And just because I played football doesn't mean I understood about coaching it. So I struggled. But the UEFA B was a lot more than the level 2, but that was up to a 9v9. And then the UEFA A is 11v11. And at the time I was doing my FA Youth Award, and again, it was youth modules, whereas now it's all they started to put it into the level 1, level 2, whereas you had to do the youth modules. Now, I really like the youth modules, and I only passed my FA Youth Award a couple of years ago because I'd gone off and did my UEFA A, and that's 11v11, whereas the FA Youth Award it's like the UEFA B for kids, whereas now they've integrated it, it's much better. But the UEFA A, I started it, so with COVID, I started it 2017 and I passed it in 2020. So it took me 3 years. Now, I know people that have done it in a year. Now, I struggled. One, I needed more coaching, so I had to get another job where I had enough coaching sessions to actually be able to go and practice. And two, it was like, I don't want to be fast tracked, and I don't want to do it really quick. So I pass it and then I actually don't understand. I want to be able to get to the point where I'm actually understand what they're talking about. And I feel that I'm at a level where, you're a UEFA A licensed coach. There's lots of good UEFA A licensed coaches. There's lots of excellent UEFA A licensed coaches. There's lots of excellent UEFA B coaches. So it's like I wanted to get to a level where, and that's why I wasn't really fussed about it taking me 3 years. If it had took me 4 years, it would have been fine, because at least I could have digested it. When I first did my first coaching session in 2014, I took it, and the coach in charge said to me, "How did that go?" And I was like, "Horrendous." And he went, "What, the kids?" I went, "No, me." Said, "That was rubbish." But after about a week, he said, "How's it going now?" I went, "Oh, it's so much better. Still rubbish, but not as bad as the first one." It was horrendous. I'm like, I am rubbish. And the amount of coaches that get criticised for he's rubbish and all that, and he's won this and he's rubbish. And how do you know he's rubbish? Why are you just saying that? Emotion. It's like, if they get told they're rubbish, we are on a different level of rubbish then. So I always say I'm less rubbish than when I first started. And I have improved massively. And as long as I improve as a coach and get better, I can live with that. But I'm a lot less rubbish.
It is funny, isn't it? Because obviously professional coaches obviously get judged by the results, don't they?
Yep.
Like it's a results driven business.
Yeah.
But actually, sometimes when you speak to players, the results maybe haven't gone for a manager or a coach, but actually really enjoyed their sessions. And did they improve the player as a player? Did they make them better? And I suppose obviously the metric is results and winning, but we maybe look at the wrong metrics at times, don't we, of how well did they develop those players, how many players came through, for example, from the youth team into the first team. But let's chat about the differences in technical content and expectation with those badges, because there is different levels of badge, isn't it? But the pro license is top, and then it's A, B and C, isn't it?
Yeah. So I've been told the pro license is the game changer, but then the A license was a big step from the B license, and the B license was a big step from level 2. So yes, in terms of differences, but again, it's your tutor saying, "But you're an A licensed coach. What does an A licensed session look like? The detail. It's all in the detail. Are you giving the teaching points? Are you looking at the bigger picture? Are you making sure that the players are engaged? Like everything, because the B license. When I did my assessment, obviously you've got a plan, you've got to prepare it. And I planned it and I did it all out. And there was like the design inside, the bigger design and everything. And he said, "How did that go?" And I went, "That's the best session I've ever done." And he went, "Oh, okay." And I went, "So if I failed, I'm really struggling because I won't be able to do better than that." He went, "Oh yeah, you passed." I was like, "That's good."
So what was it about that session that you thought, yeah, that was great? What was it about it made it good for you?
The transition so the first part, Did I remember all the teaching points for the design? And then the design went into the bigger design, and the bigger design went into the end, and the transition from first, second, third, fourth, it went as well as it can do.
I was going to say, being a qualified teacher, right? I know that
Yes.
when I go in there with a structured lesson plan and I execute that structured lesson plan,
100%.
it goes a heck of a lot better than if I've ever had. Say you're thrown in to take somebody else's cover because somebody's off sick or something. You can tell that those sessions are different. They feel different to you taking them. I've never really polled students or players as to how the session actually feels to them, but I think there's something about your session being completely structured, isn't there? And you knowing exactly what it is that you're going to do. But there's also an element to coaching of thinking on your feet, isn't there?
Yes. So if I've always said football coaches should get teaching qualification, even if it's tutoring, because when you're in a class and you have to break down the session and you have to do it for different learners and you have to engage everybody and you have to give them a start and then you have to give them a middle and then you have to give them an end. And then what we're talking about, there's a scheme of work and there's a lesson plan and there's a bigger picture. If you take that in football, that's how it should work. So you should have some kind of knowledge on teaching to be able to break the session down and put it back together again. Even if it's all football, there's still, and then, you've only got 3 points. You don't want 10 points because we don't learn with 10 points. We learn by, do we understand this? If we understand this, explain it back to me or show me. And then you know that they understand it or they can teach somebody else. So we then that's why I think you need some kind of teaching qualification. And that this is my whole thing where we talked about it at the start is I've worked in the teaching industry. I've worked in the fitness industry. I've worked in the football industry. I've worked in 3 industries. And that's where the 3 R's came into it. I wouldn't call it a philosophy. I would just call it the process that I actually look at and I've listened to teachers. And teaching's not coaching. Coaching's not teaching. Just because you played football doesn't mean you can coach. Playing football is doing it. Coaching is teaching it. So they might be unbelievable players, but then can you put into words why you were that good? Why were you that good? If you can't describe and explain why you were that good, how are you then going to tell an under 12 girl how to attack or defend or transition or help her coach or whatever? And so teaching is really important in football.
Yeah, and it's something that I always kind of discuss with people that are maybe being mentored with regards to teaching. I always say to them, listen, I can drive. You probably wouldn't want me teaching you how to drive. Just because you know how to do something doesn't necessarily mean that you can teach it, right? Now, you mentioned your 3 R's coaching framework, because that's one of the things we wanted to chat about today. You've developed a coaching philosophy based around those 3 principles: reflection, realism, and repeat. So let's dive into that. Starting with reflection, what does that mean to you in a coaching context?
So have I reflected on what I've been doing? So my application, my planning, my evaluation. So this is, have I evaluated what I've been coaching? Okay, so it comes down to the objective, what we're trying to do. In the fitness world, you come to me and say, I want to get fit. Okay, you say you want to be fit, but what fit? Oh, I want to lose a bit of weight. Okay, that's a little bit different to becoming fit. So you have to then, you're asking questions for them to describe it. So in football, what we're trying to get to. So ultimately, football, and you mentioned it before, are we developing, like so children, academies, whatever, grassroots, or are we winning men's senior football? But it's the same game. It's the same game and the same outcome is it's about winning. And it's about scoring more goals than the opposition. How you do that is then based on everything, external factors, how good the coach is, how good the players are, how much time you've got with them, how many days training, how big the pitch is. So all these external factors that we should be anticipating. So we then reflect on them. So we reflect for what we're going to do. And so we're then saying, how much time have we got? How much of the pitch have we got to then work on what we're going to try to achieve? What do we want? So if you've got the game, you're going to say, we lost 2-0. Okay, how did we lose 2-0? 2 set pieces. Okay, did we go through set pieces last week? No. So we can't blame the players then. I wouldn't blame the set piece coach. I would make sure an assistant coach does the set pieces. So his speciality is set pieces. So maybe not a specialist, but an assistant coach with a specialist subject. He's on set pieces. But that's the goalie coach. should then do that, because then goalies have to deal with crosses and set pieces. So they should have an input in that. But if you've lost 2-0, you then say, okay, what do we do for the week on set pieces and the week before that? So then you're then reflecting on what we did. So then you're evaluating what you did to then say, right, next week, we then, based on the team we're going to play, we then need to prepare for. So then our planning for next week. So we're reflecting so we're visualizing what we should do based on what we didn't do last week or what we did. And if we won, did we win because of us? So because of or in spite of. So we're then saying we're reflecting for, and then the top coaches reflecting. Now, that's the hardest part. If it was a fitness or a rehab thing, I feel with my knowledge and my experience that I can reflect in well. But when it's lead coaching and it's all going on, the top coaches, they can reflect in action when they're coaching, the players are doing it. Ultimately, the only way you do it is if you put yourself in those positions to improve and try to then say, okay, I'm going to stagger my coaching or what I'm going to say. But you're reflecting on what you did, you're reflecting for what you're going to do, and then during. And so that's the reflection. And then you'll then say, did we win because it was us? Because I hear so many, the kids don't understand. I get told by some of the girls, my teacher says, I asked too many questions. So if you ask too many questions, is it your fault or is it the teacher's fault for not explaining it well enough? Because you've still got a question mark in your head. And that's why you're asking the questions. And that's the diversification. That's what we get taught in schools, to be able to, that child needs only 1 or 2 key points, but that child can go with the next phase up. So it's the same.
Yeah, and I think there's an element to that when you're looking, isn't there? Because it's certainly, I know from a teaching perspective, it's very hard when you've got different levels of player and different levels of student. And also, I live in a world where people have got different learning needs. So you also get that in coaching as well. So
Everybody.
Your second R is realism. So in a world full of different learners, high expectations, social media and academy pressures, etc., what does it mean to be realistic as a coach?
They're all linked. They're all linked in a way. You can all bring them back into each other. Realism. So as like a story, a coach educator on my journey said to me, Driscoll, is that realistic for the game? And I think I'm so realistic. I've been called a purist with my football fitness. I was like, wow, that's not realistic to the game. And I can't remember what it was, but it was like, you're so right. I'm so wrong. That's not realistic. And then he puts cones down and mannequins in his afternoon session. And I'm like, straight away, there's a question mark in my head. I'm like thinking, hang on, realism. So whatever we do, if you want to get stronger at golf, if you want to get stronger at horse riding, if you want to and describe what strong means, but is it generic when you're saying, so generic fitness or specific fitness? Realism, is it realistic? Whether it's football training, is it actually football training? My football fitness training that I thought was football fitness training, it was falsified and it's not, because football fitness is playing football for longer. Football fitness is being able to maintain like the high tempo for 90 minutes. When people say to me, I understand about fitness, it's like they're running the players around the pitch. And it's like, players don't run around the pitch. They run in the pitch. But they're unconscious runners. That if you tell them to run around the pitch, they become conscious of the running. And everybody hates running when they play football. They want to play football and win the ball back. So it's an unconscious thing. So realistic for the game. What are you doing if you've reflected on what you've done and then you then said, okay, it's the exceptionless rule, fine. But the rule is football and the exceptions to the rule is maybe taking it out. But you've got to be able to back it up with why you're doing it.
It's interesting. I was at a conference recently and they were talking about not using total distance anymore as a metric of players' workload. And actually, we really need to be looking at intensity. The intensity of the women's game is just on a very upward trajectory. And I think that's one thing we're seeing even in men's football. You're seeing that. And if you just compare a game from now to 15 years ago, you can see that intensity. Well, despite what people are saying about centre halves having too much of the ball at the moment. But I want to talk about the third R, which is repeat. So Is this about creating habits, focusing on consistent messaging?
I read that and that was a pop-up because I thought, I didn't think about that. So my repeat was, if we keep doing the same thing and expecting different results, some smart fella called Einstein said that, why, if we reflected and we've worked out that is it realistic, but we're still doing the same thing as we did last year, and then we're blaming bad luck? That's just one of them things. We say, oh, there's so many factors in football for all these injuries, but if we've reflective practice and we've critically reflected, analysed, evaluated what we do, and then we talk about realism. So are we conditioning our players to do something in training that we don't want them to do in the game? And then I still hear coaches shouting at the players and kids. That still happens. And then we're doing the same as what we did last year. And then we're saying, oh, why have we now got 450 ACLs? Why have we got all hamstring injuries? Why are we getting hamstring surgeries? We never had those 5-10 years ago. The specialists are saying they're having stupid amounts of surgeries on hamstrings and groins during the week. Yeah, and so are we reflecting? Are we looking at the realism, and are we then saying, are we just repeating it? Because everybody copies, we've all copied somebody, but what we should be doing is looking at it and going, does that pep session, I've got under 12 girls, pep session, we're doing pep session, and then we're going, the girls are rubbish. You've got under 12 girls, and you're doing pep session or Bielsa session. No, to take that session, look at it and go, how will it look like in my under 12 girls? Is it football? Is it improving, attacking, defending, transitioning? Yeah, okay. So that's the repeat.
I spoke to Rob Anderson, who used to work at the Scottish Rugby Union, and he brought up that fact that scheduling is a real problem. Even with young boys as well, you've got them running cross country in the afternoon, and then they're playing a game at night, and they're usually not getting a chance to eat a decent meal before they go. And their
the quality?
Well,
so
exactly.
The quality, yeah. Yeah, the quality. So we're talking football, anything. What is the quality of the sport? So is it a quality sport? So they're getting tired because they're being told to do more. No, they don't want to do more. Goes back to the start. They need to do better. Train better, maintain better. Not train more, because train more might just make you more tired. Fatigue, we know fatigue is normal. Fatigue, the accumulation of fatigue is normal. But if you keep accumulating fatigue and fatigue, based on all those external factors that we know before they break, it's going to happen. And it does happen.
Yeah, no, I've had some conversations with people over in the US as well, because obviously they get decent weather sometimes all year round, and they have major issues with people just playing. And there is obviously also that conversation surrounding specialisation and whether you should specialise early. And I think most of the evidence points towards actually multi-sport is good for people. But I've come across young people who have that sort of rest is rust mentality. I can't take a day off, because if I take a day off, I'm not going to improve. And it's interesting trying to break that down with young kids as well and trying to get that across. But sometimes those attitudes and beliefs are reinforced by parents as well.
100%. Yes.
A day off,
100%.
a day off isn't a good thing. You need to be working hard. And actually, if you think about what professional footballers do, when they're not actually training, they're resting. That's why you're professional. You've got time to rest.
I hear stories from parents and from players and from coaches where players get 2 days rest and by the head coach, and then they go off with their personal trainer or the one-to-one because he says, oh, you need to get strong now and get powerful. No, you actually need to rest because then you can play. Resilience training, what is that? Resilience training is training more, being able to maintain playing. Well, these players that are being told, let's go and do resilience training, how's that going? They're all injured.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And that's one of the things we try and sell with injury prevention programs is that, hey, if you do them, you'll actually have your players available more. And we know that there's evidence to say that if you do them, you win more. But then, of course, I speak to my athletic development colleagues and they're like, yeah, but the injury prevention programs are just bodyweight. They're not hard enough. We need levels to this thing. So I definitely think there's some conversations to be had. Now, the grassroots coaches who are listening to this, you spoke about your 3 R's framework. How would they start to embed that into their sessions without needing lots of resources?
Yeah. So even what you're planning on, you're planning for, you're planning in. So it's planning in, what if, we always say, what if something happens? You have a step 1, step 2, step 3. What is your objective first? What are you trying to do? I'm coaching year 5s, year 6s, year 7s, year 8s, some boys, but at the moment, mainly girls. And I'm asking them questions. And because I'm like, okay, we need to develop the fundamentals of the game. So it's not about my coaching philosophy, whatever that is. It's about me applying the fundamentals of football to teach the girls and say, okay, and the girls are smart. What we're trying to achieve? We got to win. Okay. So winning at all costs. It is about winning. Winning at all costs is when coaches say, oh, it's about playing winning football. No. How did you get on last week? We lost. That's not winning football. So it is about winning. That's the rules of the game. You score more goals than the opposition. So then how do we do that? We have to get it up to the number 9. Okay, how do we do that? We do this and this. And then that's your external factors. So again, you're then saying, how am I going to develop my plan? So you've got to be able to plan, and you've got to be able to then adapt your plan so it's adaptable. When fixed thinker or a flexible thinker, you've got to have a plan, because if you don't, good luck. So you've got to have a plan.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing, isn't it? And as I said, like, the best sessions that I've taken, whether that be football or whether it be from a kind of training perspective, a teaching plan, they're planned. And I know my students or my players, I know what they're capable of. The ones that I've thought, oh God, that did not go well, is when I've turned up, for example, trials. They're never fun because you don't know what's coming, you know?
Yeah.
And those are the sessions that I sometimes find difficult. But I had a session the other night where I turned up and it was meant to have been booked from 7 till 8:30. It had been booked from 7:30 till 8:30. So I'd lost half an hour. So they were like, oh, you can have this tiny third of a field. And I really had to think on my feet with what is it that I'm actually going to do here and how does it feed into the session that I've actually planned? And yeah, so there's things that can come along. That's what I was talking about, thinking on your feet. Now, as a last little bit, I want to just have this conversation with you, right? We need more women coaches discussed.
100%. So, yes. So here's my thinking on that. So I've got 3 daughters and the last one plays football. So that's why I'm connected with the girls. Obviously, meeting Emma a few years ago, Emma Hayes, the best women's coach by a million miles. She's come out and said, we don't want men coaches that are just coming into the game that can't get a job in the men's game. That's 100%. So if you're coming into the women's game, you do it properly. End of. You do your job and you do it properly. But that's how it should be for anything. So if you're going to coach, just because you're coaching grassroots, what? Because you're not coaching academy players, you're going to give them a Mickey Mouse session. No, you do it properly, because our job is to coach. We have a duty of care to look after them, and we have a duty of care to coach them, to try and improve them. So if we're going to coach, let's do it properly. So should there be more men in the women's game? Yes, if it's appropriate. Should there be more women? Now, it's like not all boys want to play football. So boys shouldn't have to play football if they don't want to play football. But some girls want to play football, but not all girls. Like, not all girls should want to play netball. They should have the choice. But if we give them the environment, so we create more opportunities for women. Do you want to coach? No, I don't. Okay. Do you want to coach? Yeah, I thought about it. Okay, then support them. And that's the thing. Let's not start pushing our women into the game, like trying to push ex-players into being referees. Some might want to do it, but why would you want to be a referee and be shouted at by everybody? My personal opinion. So yes, we should have more women coaches, but as we say, and we're like straight down the middle, because racism and sexism, it should be the best coach. If the best coach is a woman, and women can coach, they can teach, they can be lawyers, they can run businesses, they can be doctors, so they should be coaches. And I've had the pleasure of seeing what Emma Hayes is. She's head and shoulders above 90% of the men coaches. So they should be given the opportunity if they want to do it, and support.
Do you think she'll ever work in the male game?
So she's not my friend, but I do know her. But as she said, why should she? That's taking a step down. She's in the best job, the US job. Like, my daughter wants to play for Chelsea Ladies. And I said when I met Emma years ago, I said, will you still be the manager at like Chelsea? Because what she's done, but there's lots of women, there's lots of staff that have been unbelievable in women's game. What she's done is propelled it even more. But she was like, oh, I don't think so. And that's when she was getting her MBE, I think, or OBE was one of them. But so it was a long time ago because she was like, how old is my one? And she was like 5. No, I'll be gone by then. That's ages away. But yeah, yes, she's amazing. But she's a top coach. But why does she need to go into the med? Oh, yeah, because she needs to prove herself. She doesn't need to prove herself. She's the best.
Let me ask you this then. What do you think are the main barriers to getting women into coaching? Because,
Sexism,
yeah, I don't disagree.
like massive. Oh, women can't play football. Women can't coach. Okay, based on what? And it might be somebody that can coach. It might not be somebody that can't, somebody that can't coach at all. Somebody that just watches the game and is a fan. Women shouldn't, that it's like 2025. Dinosaurs go home.
Do you know what? It's interesting because I see a lot of women who are taking up the game late because obviously they come into walking football and things.
Yeah.
And they would make great coaches. Their communication skills are outstanding. And they do jobs like teachers or, like you said, they're accountants and they've got jobs sometimes where they publicly speak and they're just good. What they lack, however, is a lot of confidence. And that comes from, I've never played the game. Oh, my skills aren't good enough. Oh, I don't really know the rules. I'm still learning. So how can I possibly coach? And I think there is an element to that. And I have toyed with the idea of kind of thinking about something with Women's Football Hub where they could come along and almost do a pre-coaching. You know what I'm saying? Come and learn the rules. Come and learn how to technically kick properly.
Well, it's the knowledge.
Yeah.
It's based. But do you need to have played the game to have the knowledge of coaching the game? So I've been to school so I can teach. No, you have to have the knowledge first. And I've had loads of injuries so I can be a physio. No. It's you, and that's the one thing with football is like people can go into the game and not have the knowledge. They've got experience in playing, but experience, 1 year experience of coaching or 20 years experience of coaching. If 1 year you develop yourself and you falsify what you're doing and you improve, or you do the same year 20 times 20, that's not real. Oh, but I've been 20 years. That's the difference, experience and knowledge. You need knowledge. You need to have knowledge to start with. And then you might have a chance. No guarantee, but you've got a better chance having the knowledge to start with. And then the confidence might come because you understand the game.
I don't disagree. If there was one piece of advice you could give to a new coach who's looking to go into coaching, what would it be?
Get a mentor. Make sure you got a mentor, but also mentor somebody below you. I.e., that sounds wrong, but if you're a UEFA B, mentor UEFA C, UEFA A mentor, even if you have to do it for free, because what people, and my mentor taught me this, is like, and we've probably thought about it, whereas, we want to be paid for everything, but if we know something, we understand it, we can teach somebody else. So surely we'll then be improving our references and our knowledge by mentoring somebody else. And it's not about telling them what to do. And that's where the education falls down. Oh, yeah, Carolyn, you need to do this. Based on what? Oh, because I did it for the best team in England. Yeah, but you had those players. I've got under 12 girls. So what's the carryover? How does it transfer? It can't. It's still football. So you need get a mentor, get a couple of mentors. I have my sort of researcher, he's my mentor. And then I have my sort of medical mentor that I'm like, okay, you've got an issue, right, let me speak to him. He tells me, oh yeah, I knew that anyway, but I'm always going to confirm it because he's the expert. And then, so education, football, have that, and then go out and try and get a couple of people that are trying to get on the pathway, and then you mentor them, like what you would do with physio, new recruits, I suppose. It'd be the same thing. Do that, have that, and you've got a chance. Always surround yourself with people that are better than you, not in a you're a bad person, but actually like more qualified, because then you've got people that you can say something and you're in an environment. I've got mates that will question what I say and I've got to explain it then. I go on courses that you have to, why are you saying that? You got to put your money where your mouth is. And so you get overloaded, but this is what you should do. You shouldn't have people around you that say, yes. You should have say, why are you doing that? And why are you doing that? And then you can explain it. And if you can't explain it well enough, you need to practice more.
Well, it's also the case of if you can't explain why are you teaching it in the first place.
Yep.
Andy, it
Yeah.
has been lovely to speak to you today. It's been really nice to hear about the UEFA A licence, also your kind of coaching philosophy as well, and also just your thoughts on women's football. I know you've been a big supporter with regards to women's football, and I do thank you for that. Please feel free to come on again and talk about any other subject that you want to talk about. For those of you who are thinking about taking up coaching, please don't be shy. It is really important that we get good quality coaches back into women's football. And remember that it is a growing game. There is going to be lots of space for you. And that I personally find women's football a very supportive environment. So if you are thinking about it, please feel free to reach out. And for those of you working with players right now, please always follow the evidence. We will see you soon.
Thank you for listening to Women's Football Hub. The information within this podcast is for informational purposes only. No material on this podcast is intended to be a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please contact your doctor or another healthcare professional if you have any questions about anything raised in this podcast.